Hi, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. I've got Max with me today, and we're going to be talking about Max's book. Oh,
Oh,
your business card dropped out. Max's book, and the Global Payroll Manager's Playbook. Fantastic read. Everything you need to know about payroll, but we're afraid to ask. And Max, where can people find you?
thanks, Tim, and thanks for having me. People can find me mostly on LinkedIn. Just see my very difficult Dutch name, or you
So,
can.
how do you pronounce your name,
Ah,
Max? I
so
forgot to ask before we went live.
it's Max van der Klis-Busink.
Right, excellent.
Yeah, but people can find me on LinkedIn under this difficult name or under Passion for Payroll. That's the best way to find me.
Okay, so your LinkedIn or your website, which is Passion for Payroll.
Correct.
Excellent. And I can get a copy on Amazon or.
You could get a copy of the book on Amazon, or what's becoming more popular, you can order a copy directly from me.
Yep.
Then I will hand sign it for you. Add some nice goodies that just fell out of Tim's book.
It did, yes.
And that also supports charity. So all
Okay.
the profits of the book go to charity of a local sports club, where I support families who are in financial need so that their kids can also join a sports club. I pay for their contributions, their shoes, their clothes, and everything. So it's not
Okay.
just me you're
Excellent.
supporting or your own career development, it's also society.
Right. So, what inspired you to write the book?
I wish my younger self had this book when he started his payroll journey in global payroll. I vividly remember sitting down in Amsterdam, probably in the early 2010s, where I really wanted to pivot my career to global payroll, and I couldn't really find anything aside from fairly expensive courses overseas that require travel and a big investment. But there wasn't really a handbook or a playbook that's written out of experience. That motivated me, and I'm turning 40 this year, Tim, and it was on my bucket list. So I said, let's release the book for me to really give back to the profession that has given so much to me. And that was my main motivation.
Yeah, I said to you in the preparation call, I actually started my sales career selling payroll,
It
and there was nothing around.
no.
You kind of had to read the brochures and talk to people to get experience, and you go into an nth amount of detail in the book, and I mean that from a good way, in terms of understanding that here's a structure, and then the expectation that you walk through as you go through the book, and it's written clearly from a very modern day perspective, because the expectations are very modern in the fact that we're
Hmm.
inclusive to people and etc etc. What do you see that yourself, that clearly you're filling a gap there, I guess, with the book?
I hope so. Yeah. No, and actually lately there's been other books as well out there from other writers about payroll, which is great because we're finally elevating our profession. But what I wanted to do is to support those payroll professionals to get visibility of their function within their organization, to get the much needed credits that they deserve, but also to help people who might currently work in a domestic payroll environment who want to take the leap to global payroll, to kind of get an idea where to start, which questions to ask, and which concepts to adapt. And for those already working in global payroll to kind of have a handbook on their desk that they could consult instead of ChatGPT or something else.
Yeah, and you've got all kinds of diagrams. I'm just holding a book
Yes,
up there to show the diagrams that.
exactly. Well, this may have been my consulting background, Tim, but I love structured diagrams and frameworks. And I think after spending 2 decades working with payroll professionals, payroll loves structure.
Hmm.
That's why I've developed an easily digestible framework that almost makes global payroll sound easy. And I've written it in such a way that you can go from strategy all the way down to delivery and operations. And I've tried to write it that it doesn't really matter where you start. So if you're in need of, hey, which controls should I actually be operating? Well, go to that specific component. You don't have to read all the first chapters to go there. So it's really meant to be kind of in a handbook, but then written with a lot of practical examples and frameworks. Yeah.
And what makes the frameworks different?
Than any other framework out there,
Yeah,
because it's the first one, Tim.
yeah,
That's probably what makes it different. But with all due respect, I have released a version of this framework already years ago through Payroll.org in various articles, and it has evolved as I have evolved my payroll career, and has the profession evolved in a new world dynamic. And I've now tried to make it even simpler, because the most complex thing is making something simple, Tim.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and I in my world in sales, what I wanted to do in my life was actually create structure from the chaos of people coming onto social media and getting it all wrong. And what I did was created the structure from that. So and as you say, that it's very easy to just replicate chaos and structure, chaos and complexity, and the difficulty is actually making it easy and simple, isn't it?
It is, and there's also a lot in global payroll where sometimes we feel like it's us versus them, and we do shout that something needs to change, and we need more support. But I said, let's do that a bit more factual and evidence-based, right? Because there's also a lot of practical tips out there of how to elevate your profession, or how to talk to C-suite about your insights, your analytics. But also the people on the ground still having 20 spreadsheets open, Tim, in a day, an age of AI and integrations. If you would ask any payroll professional in the world, in the middle of processing payroll, if they have Excel open, I think 99.99% will say yes. And that's also the reality we live in. So that's why I've tried to write the book not too futuristic, but it has futuristic ideas in it, but also really touching the day in the life of a global payroll professional, whether you're a manager or a practitioner.
Yeah, because you talk about the simplicity, but also the complexity of payroll calendars.
Yes.
And how work calendars really easy, isn't it? Because it's, and then you go, yeah, but there's a particular Catholic holiday in Brazil in in Bolivia it's President's Day and stuff like that, and they're all the things that you've got to actually know about. So having that complexity is so important, or understanding the complexity.
It is, and an appreciation for the complexity, right? Anyone who works in payroll who looks at a calendar doesn't look at the birthday of a relative, but he looks at, is it my approval day? Is it my cutoff day? Or is it my submission day? That's how the payroll brain works. And then you have multiple cycles. Some countries love a weekly payroll. Some do a fortnightly or a bi-monthly payroll. Some do a monthly payroll. And that all needs to come together in a calendar. And then, by the way, you still have a family life, Tim, that somehow you also need to manage. And there's time zones. So I call this the art of the payroll calendar, because it really is an art to nail down every right date and time zone, considering all the nuances and complexities.
So what are the biggest misconceptions of payroll then?
I will not reference a button, because I'm kind of on a campaign to not reference it. So I think the misconception is that it's really easy and a system does everything for you. I think that's the biggest misconception of payroll. And another misconception is that it's not a people's business, that it's more a, let's get some data in, let's process it, let's get something out. I think it's maybe, next to the overall HR function, the most personable, relatable function that's out there. Because, hey, we're the main reason that people come to work. And then there's an employee experience and culture and belonging. But if you don't get paid, Tim, it's kind of a fundamental thing of going to work. And I think there's an underappreciation of the vast majority of data that we have. If you look at a finance perspective, and any company who's a little bit labor intense, 60 to 70% of the P&L are payroll results.
Yep. People.
If you look at any governments, the biggest source of revenue is collected through payroll.
And the thing about, I was talking to someone about this the other day, and they said that, and for all those people that are out there watching this, some of you may be self-employed, but and you might not be being paid, but if you're being employed and you're being paid, no one ever thanks the payroll team. Even though you go, you can go through years and years and years of being paid, they never. And the thing is, if they get it minutely wrong, you're straight on the phone complaining.
Correct. That's it. It's almost a thankless job. That's why a lot of payroll people love speaking to other payroll people, because we understand and we relate to each other. But on the flip side, I also say, when do we say to someone working in finance, that was a great GL post? Right? Oh, lovely.
Good journal that was.
Good journal, right?
Yeah,
Oh, the balances.
good journal.
Woo! The difference is we touch people's lives more than the people who post GL files, right? And I've actually started a practice when I was still a global payroll manager and I had a lot of countries where I outsourced payroll. I always sent the person who actually processed or managed my payroll in whatever country, after a successful cycle, I always sent them a personal thank you note. Because, hey, be the change you want to see.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. So talk us quickly through the key pillars then, Max.
Yeah. So the key pillars of the framework. So we start kind of with global payroll strategy. And there's a lot of talk out there about strategy, and there's research that between 30 to 40% have a global payroll strategy. That means that half of the organizations around the world do not have a global payroll strategy. Yet it's important to business growth, to continuity. That's why I've broken it down in kind of four pieces. One is a purpose statement. What do we promise to the organization? Is this function even here? Right? Why are we not totally outsourced, for instance? Why is this functioning? What's our promise to the business, to the organization, but also to the employees? And then I have a couple of design principles that just make making decisions easier, some strategic objectives, and also how to deliver the actual service. That's kind of the strategy part. Governance is something we, of course, very much focus on, because we handle very much sensitive data. But it starts with a good organizational structure. Right? Do you go on a hub structure with shared service centers? Do you go in country, or do you go fully remote and just follow the talent, just like with any business? And a lot of companies are following that now. We have some policies, and one of my pet peeves is risk and control. You could wake me up in the middle of the night. Hopefully no one who's here will actually do that, but okay, you could hypothetically wake me up and talk about risk control and compliance. Then we have an operating model that really looks at the technical side, which I think is super important, but also being sold as a silver bullet, Tim. I think the last study I did informed me that any payroll cycle of any payroll professional in the world has 7 or more data sources. While we've implemented human capital systems and everything, there are still a lot of spreadsheets or tickets or separate information.
And that could be time and attendance systems, or all kinds of different.
Exactly.
And it may be that they're required for different laws, because there's a particular, in the UK, nurses will have a different shift pattern or something.
They will. There's a lot of different requirements, like church tax in Germany, wage tax credit in the Netherlands, a 10 number in Australia, or anything else, right? So we focus a lot about APIs and other integrations from the main HCMs, which has been a successful transformation journey, but we're not looking at holistically what data does payroll really need, because we're still dependent on the quality and the timeliness of the data we receive. That's why normally 60% of any payroll person's time sits on the pre-payroll process of getting the data right and on time. So I talk a lot about that in the operating model, the third pillar. The fourth pillar is where I say the actual magic happens, and that's the operations, right? From pre-payroll, run payroll to post-payroll. So it kind of covers from strategy to tactical to operational. So 244 pages of payroll prose I love, Tim.
And just to I'm showing the Max has just basically talked through this, but you then break that down going through the book, and you've also got loads of other diagrams, that you work.
Yes.
It's not just. You put where there's a diagram needed, you put one in, so we don't actually have to think about it. It's a even right down to in the delivery, and he puts the breakdown of the time, and what you've just said in terms of the 60%.
I might quote Celine Dion here. It's all coming back to me now, Tim.
I don't remember any of the books that I wrote, so I don't know. I totally understand Keith Richards and Mick Jagger in saying that they didn't remember anything that they wrote. But
it is amazing, right? Because some people come up to me and say, "Oh, I saw this quote on page 193." I said, "Okay, I actually need to go back to my own book." I said, "What did I say on page 193?"
Yeah, I've had people say in chapter 3, you say this, and I'm thinking, and I'll say, "What chapter's that?" And they'll look at me as it's like, yeah. So, Anyway, what because we talked about actually we talked a lot about people. So what role does technology and automation play?
A supporting role, and a very important supporting role. But payroll, in my mind, will always be a people's business. We still haven't solved. I've spent 2 decades working in payroll. We still haven't solved that technology piece of getting correct data in. Some may have, but there's still a lot of other stuff out there. So I think the role of payroll, the payroll people where we add value, is that we need to inform the guys who actually develop technology and who deliver technology. What do we actually need? Right? I still have to find the global payroll providers out there who say, not only what can we sell, but what do the payroll people actually need in terms of enabling technologies? How can we make sure that after your email, Excel is not the second thing that you open?
Yeah.
Right. I think that's something we need to work towards. And of course, AI is and probably will be a very important part of our life, if not already. But the question asked many times, will it replace payroll people? No. As none of the technological developments did the past 20 years. But technology is a big piece of it, but sometimes overemphasized in terms of a solution.
One of the things that I loved about it, Max, was the way that you talk about the ways of working.
Yeah.
And you said earlier on, be the change you want to be.
Yes.
And it's a bit like you say, thank people.
Yes.
And I'm trying to think what else you said, but you in effect you give. It's not just about this is the framework and this is the process and you need to think about these things but this is the way that your team should work, and the way that should disseminate, because in effect, if you're the global payroll manager, you're setting the culture for the whole of the payroll department.
Yeah, and I think even broader, because you are the voice to employees. So the culture you have within your team, how you communicate, how you deal with issues, problems. Payroll hits for 99.9% accuracy rate. That means every pay cycle, people are receiving incorrect pay. And we need to deal with that as a team. And people need to be able to speak up, hey, I've made a mistake, or I found a mistake. And I was triggered by this one of my last roles when I was a global payroll manager at Zoom, where the guys told me, hey, this is one of the best functioning teams we've worked in, because we trusted each other and we could almost do a follow the sun approach, where someone in EMEA ended that day to be with the family and someone else picked it up, right? And we cross-reference. And for me, when I hear things like, I trust you, or hey, I'm here to support you, or I will not dodge when a bullet is sent to you, I will stand in front of you and support you. And hey, if you have a difficult case with an employee, I am here for you to take over, and we learn from it together. Creating a team in payroll is important.
Because even though you're set, so there are mistakes, and if it's 99.9% accurate, then and you've got 100,000 employees, that's actually a lot of mistakes.
Yes.
And what happens is that the people become emotive. The employees are usually emotive about it because there's an expectation it will be correct. And it's about dealing with that and not blaming people and supporting that, isn't it?
That's it. And let's face reality, 100% accurate payroll is the ultimate game. And that's something we should always strive for, and not set up for 99.99%. But that also means that we need the structure, which I talk about a lot in the payroll performance piece, with KPIs. How do you track root cause analysis? All of those things. But we need to every cycle improve, every cycle learn. And most of the time, the mistake that happened isn't really the payroll's mistake. It could be that we've processed a commission flawlessly throughout the whole cycle, but the commission calculation was incorrect. Now, it doesn't matter to the employee that payroll didn't do it, because they will pick up the phone or a Zoom chat or whatever, a Teams chat, and they will say, hey, my pay is incorrect. And you say, well, I don't see any mistakes, but this person is still unhappy. And that's also about the culture, that you need to relate to the person. Hey, he is unhappy. It's not about who made the mistake, but our employee, our colleague is unhappy. Let's help him. And then, of course, we fight our battles in a good forward-thinking way with upstream partners. But let's think about that employee that we need to serve. And that's the culture you would want to create.
And what do you think the future of payroll is, Max?
Bright. I think we will finally start solving some real data issues where it doesn't really matter in what format it sits or what template. I think we are definitely going to solve that, not at source, because we will still receive data that's not corrected with each other, but AI and other evolutions are already trying to solve that, and it will be solved, which does create a lot more space for us. And I think payroll will become more prevalent in terms of data in the C-suite. I'm not a firm believer of payroll having a seat at the table. The table is very crowded, but payroll as a theme, payroll as data, will make its way to that suite. And for governments, payroll will become the most single trusted data source that's out there. You see the movements in everywhere: Brazil, Mexico, UK, the Netherlands. The digitization of the returns and the added complexity of data elements that payroll doesn't necessarily need will be the big source of big data to the government, which will have its effect on payroll itself.
Max, thank you so much for coming on and talking about your book, The Global Payroll Managers Playbook. Fantastic. The fireworks you got set off there as well. I didn't know you could do that, actually. So you've taught me something. And I loved it. You know, I worked in, I didn't work in, I mean, I sold payroll systems many years ago, and it brought back a lot of happy memories. And I know what you're talking about in terms of the book, in terms of the detail, the framework, and the structure, and the attitude as well.
Great. Well, thanks for having me, Tim, and showing interest in the book. For anyone out there, find me on LinkedIn, follow me, drop me a note. It needs to be on your desk.
So Max, thank you so much for coming on, and remind me I can find you on LinkedIn, or your website is
passionforpayroll.com, or find me via email at max@passionforpayroll.com.
Excellent. Max, thank you so much for coming on and talking about your book and